I want to take a moment to let you know that I do have a Patreon. You can be a $3 a month, $5 or $10 a month member. $5 and $10 members get all my videos without ads and an audio version if you like to listen while you're multitasking, working, or whatever. $10 members actually get a free copy of my first book, Rational Answers to Stupid Questions. Link is in the description. Enjoy the video. Something funny has been happening. I've been getting a bunch of notifications for pretty old videos. So for example, the April video is like 2.5 years old at this point, but you can see in the last few days, for whatever reason, YouTube pushed it to a lot of people. That's nothing compared to this one. Pastor condemns all natives to hell. I mean, that was getting almost no views, and then for whatever reason, it's just exploded lately. You gotta watch this video. The dude's despicable, but it has this absolutely hilarious moment. Great. What if you're wrong and you suffer eternal punishment because you were wrong?
I 100% know for the fact that I'm going to heaven because I've given my soul. I've given my soul to the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
What if you're wrong?
Brother, there is absolutely, I can guarantee, and here's why I'm not wrong. The tomb is empty, and over 500
this is the
people.
Most egotistical thing I've ever heard in the world. Well, I was wrong about the April video. It's only about 1.5 years old. Pretty much all of these videos are. Now, this is the one I want to take a look at. This video doesn't have a hockey stick. It's just kind of always linearly done really well for whatever reason. Now, I want to rewatch some of this because I know that my arguments weren't all that great in it, and I just want to see how young Eric dealt with people like this. The backstory is, I have no idea who this guy was. I don't remember what his username or anything was either, but he just out of the blue created a bunch of videos, tagged me in them, and was just kind of attacking me, saying atheism has no morality or anything. And he was a small channel. I think he was just desperate to get on a bigger platform, and I entertained it.
Here's the thing. You often like to go after Christians.
No, just their arguments.
So, whatever. You like to go after Christians, but here's the thing.
Nope, just their arguments. Yeah, he had a script, all right.
Atheism is fundamentally immoral.
You could argue it's amoral, but not immoral.
It is immoral, yes.
Just see, he has the script, and nothing other than the script is allowed to be said. You could argue it's amoral, but not immoral.
So here's the thing. On what basis are you more moral than a Nazi? Because if you're not, would you agree that if you're not more moral than a Nazi, then your morality isn't worth much?
Yeah, probably. So everything they believed in was literally false. So if you're going to try to base some sort of meta-ethics on things that literally aren't true, then it's not rational, and it can't possibly be the grounding for anything. Okay, so I really did not like debates centered around morality at this point when I was doing this kind of thing, because I didn't really know how to respond very often. I don't actually think that this is a bad response, but it does sort of skirt the question in a way. Like I said, I do think that it is pretty decent. I mean, what they believed in was literally not true. So what that would mean is, according to the people espousing their claims, well, their claims are false. So it falls apart for them.
So this should be really easy. On what ultimate basis are you better than a Nazi?
So before you change the subject, did you understand anything that I just said?
This should be simple, bud. On what ultimate basis are you better than a Nazi?
So see, he can't engage. We can change the subject once you actually engage with your first point.
Sweetie,
So,
I'm not changing the subject. On
yes,
what
you are.
basis?
So the reason that literally almost any other standard would be better than what they said is nothing that they believed in was true. So if you're going to base a meta-ethics on things that are literally false, how can it possibly be said to be good in any way?
many of the things they believed were true.
Yeah, I don't know. I could probably be convinced that well, I mean, for example, I literally don't think nobody thinks that the value of $1 can be grounded in anything. We just make it up, right? I mean, it's based on things, but we just declare by fiat that it has value, right? Or human rights. Human rights don't really exist. Now, there are groundings and rationales and justifications for, how would you say, for supporting following human rights, because in a normative sense, it's consistent with our own cognition and our own desires.
Like what?
They perceive
Which Nazi ideas do you think are true?
Natural selection. They simply followed the natural selection of the animal kingdom.
They did not believe in natural selection.
Of course they did.
No, they didn't.
They believed in natural selection, and they believed that the weaker conquers the lesser. And
that's not natural selection.
Natural
selection. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I think I can probably read this guy's mind. That's some like perversion of like manifest destiny or something else. But no, they were. I would say it's more. I'd say it's more Nietzsche than it is that. But they were fervently against it. They kicked people out of their country that believed in it. Yeah, it's all true. They actually had. We don't know if it was ever implemented, but they had lists of banned books, and evolutionary biology books were banned.
I'm just looking for any kind of a basis. You believe that you're more moral than a Nazi, so on what basis are you more moral than a Nazi? It should be pretty simple.
Yeah, like I said, one of the biggest things is the stuff that they grounded their like worldview in is literally false.
I believe things that are scientifically true.
Why? It doesn't have to be scientifically true. If you have an objective in mind, then the truth is the only possible way you're going to get to that objective, unless your objective is to lie to people, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of fine. There was a lot of stumbling, I think, on my part early on, because he asked this question several times, but why ought I believe in something that's true? At first, I tried to say, well, aren't God's commandments true? So I was trying to point out, don't you think that we should do that? I would probably, today just try to approach that with, well, it depends on what your goals are, which is essentially what I did here. But then I could show, or I could argue very matter-of-factly that a society that is cohesive and that is interested in the truth and has truth-seeking mechanisms in it and is egalitarian and doesn't treat people in ways that the perpetrators wouldn't want to be treated, that those objectively are more flourishing societies.
Okay. So this should be pretty easy for you. Just to move on to the next subject. On what ultimate basis? On what basis are you better than a Nazi? Because you claim to be better than a Nazi.
I literally have answered it several times. I'm not going to answer it another time.
What? No, sorry. Remind me on what basis you are better than a Nazi.
If you can't remember, that's your fault. I mean, this was a long time ago, so I don't remember that much. But I do kind of remember having this sense of, I don't know how to answer this ultimate question or whatever. So I was avoiding it a little bit. Another part of why I'm not really directly trying to provide any sort of alternative is because what I'm trying to do here is eventually get to the point where I say, what if God told them to do it? Because then this whole ultimate thing you can't appeal to, because that grounding is not the avenue of not becoming a Nazi. It's an avenue that says, it's the only possible avenue that says what they did was good.
So you can't answer the question?
I have answered the question multiple times.
So you are better than a Nazi because none of the things that they believe are true.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Okay.
But also the things that they believed in violated the sovereignty of the individual.
Oh, the sovereignty of this should be good. Why ought individuals be sovereign?
Yeah, so this is kind of where it falls apart for me. What's happening is he's trying to peel back as many layers as he can to the point where you don't know what to say. Now, what I could have done here, and I didn't do, was I could just say that by definition is good. So it's not circular, but for me back then, I didn't really know what to say. And so then what was going on in my head was probably, yeah, that would be circular, wouldn't it? Or something to that effect. I remember he actually uploaded this part of the debate, and I remember leaving a comment saying something like, it's wrong because it violates the sovereignty of the individual, isn't circular reasoning, you garden gnome, because that's what he was saying I was doing. Why ought individuals be sovereign? What right do you have to violate somebody else's sovereignty?
What right?
Yeah, this is something I used to do quite often. I'll still do this every now and then. I will ask somebody, can you give a logical argument for why it's okay for you to harm me, but it's not okay for me to harm you? Nobody can do that.
Right, do you have to say that individuals can't have their sovereignty violated?
Okay, so the question is, what right do you have to violate the sovereignty of another individual?
What is sovereignty? Where did that come from? Why does that exist? Prove that.
Prove that sovereignty exists. Yeah, prove a social convention. It's not a good question, but I didn't know how to respond to that back then.
You're collapsing, dude. Your whole world.
No, it's not. You just keep saying this is one of the most sophomoric philosophical techniques that people have. It's like the Jordan Peterson technique of, it depends on what you mean, but by is and suffering and blah blah blah. So you're not engaging with anything. You change the subject every single time I respond to something.
Sweetie, you just asserted the sovereignty of humans. Prove that.
That humans have sovereignty? Humans are discrete, individual, living entities.
You asserted something about the sovereignty of human...
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm trying to ground it in things that can be demonstrated to be known, but he's kind of asking for a value judgment, which isn't what I'm doing, so bad, Eric.
Something or other. Please prove that.
Prove what? That human beings exist? That they are discrete living entities?
No, you referred to the sovereignty of human beings. I don't remember exactly how you put it.
Yeah, this is so cringe on my part. So saying that they have sovereignty, like as a right, I am equivocating that with the fact that we exist and we are individuals.
Are you a humanist? Why don't you just put forward, like, what is your belief system?
Atheism isn't a belief system.
It is, though?
It's not.
Like it is?
It's not? I don't think you even know what atheism is.
So it is. Atheism, materialism, humanism, it's all kind of a big...
Oh, man, this stuff. Yeah, when people say, well, atheists are materialists, which means they believe in this. And now let me destroy the atheist position. That is still a very, very common tactic.
Mash of beliefs that you guys generally believe. So it actually is a belief system.
Atheism is not a belief system. So his argument there is atheism is the belief system that people who are atheists believe. That is so wild. That's like saying that's like saying Christianity is when you're a fan of the Dallas Cowboys. Why? Because generally a lot of people that are Christian tend to be Dallas Cowboys fans. So being a Christian is when Dallas Cowboys. It's a way of describing people that don't have a particular belief system.
Okay, so let's do this. What is your belief system?
When it comes to what?
Life.
Life? It exists. Yeah, I mean, it's just a horrible question, so it's not a great answer, but, well, it's the only answer that you could give to that. I believe that life progresses through Darwinian evolution and natural selection.
According to Darwinian natural selection, which you believe in, on what basis would it be wrong for me to kill every other human being, take as many women as I want to rape as possible, drive around...
There is no moral framework in Darwinian evolution. Yeah, you don't base it in evolution. I've been asked this before. by people, and I just simply say, well, I wouldn't base it in evolution. You could describe how some sort of normative framework you have where you build a pro-social civilization can be, like, in a sense, not necessarily justified, but demonstrated to be effective because it's consistent with our human nature for cooperation. But I wouldn't base it in that. So this is a non-starter.
Exactly. And so on what basis are you more moral than a Nazi?
So because I said, well, I wouldn't base it in this thing, he's saying, therefore, you have no basis for anything. So do you believe that 2 + 2 = 4?
Yes.
Where am I going with this? On what basis of that do you think that the Nazis were wrong? That's actually a good one.
It's unrelated to Nazism.
There you go.
But yours actually is.
Get it? That was actually pretty good. Oh, good job, young Eric. You actually get something.
You just said that you have no issue with someone driving around in a tank and doing whatever they want. Jeez. So on what basis is that wrong?
No, I didn't. I said that I wouldn't base it on Darwinian evolution, although you could make an argument for it, because a species that actively goes around trying to destroy itself is obviously not going to be a successful species. And actually, quite a lot of what we know about human beings is that, well, I mean, we clearly are an integral social species. And so there are all these questions about, does natural selection favor psychopathy? Does it favor people that are freeloaders and do whatever they want? And it doesn't at all.
So on what basis would it be wrong? On what basis would it be wrong for me to drive around in a tank, kill whoever I want, and try to take over the world? On what basis, according to Peterson, would that be wrong?
I am not I didn't invent any moral frameworks, and evolution doesn't contain a moral framework. So again, this is kind of a non-starter. Exactly. Again, I went back to the fact that it would violate the sovereignty of the individual earlier. I don't know where I even came up with that. If you don't think that the sovereignty of individuals is important, then okay, you're kind of weird.
On what basis ought we believe in the sovereignty of the individual?
On what?
This is where the collapse happens.
Do humans exist?
This is where the collapse happens.
Yeah, we already went through this, so I'm trying to give the same argument that I can prove to him that individuals exist, and that is not the same as accepting the that sovereignty is like good or righteous or anything. Shame.
According to your worldview, there's nothing wrong with driving around in a tank and killing people.
Then tell us why then give us the actual answer.
I just want people to get the gravity of why your moral system is toilet paper, because you have no issue with...
Yeah, he has nothing at all.
...with people driving around in a tank killing people. You have no issue with that, Peterson.
Yes, I do. It violates the sovereignty of the individual. But
why is it wrong?
Why is it wrong to violate? Just tell us the answer then. Why is it wrong
to violate this? Why is it wrong to violate the sovereignty of the individual?
Just go with this. I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, so you have no moral system. You have no basis to say that.
Again, assume that that's true. Now tell us the answer.
You have no basis on which to say that
he can't do anything other than repeat this one line over and over again.
Individual we should not violate the sovereignty.
Yes, you've said that 5 times now. Now okay. Give us the actual answer, what you think it is.
Okay, because we're made in the image of God.
What does that mean?
It is God has imbued humanity with his image, and they're more...
Why is that? So therefore, why should that be the basis?
Exactly. Because I think it should.
Okay, ready? I think we just simply shouldn't violate the sovereignty of an individual.
I'll give you a little more.
Wow. So is morality according to you? Wow.
Okay.
So if that's permissible, then it's permissible for me to simply say, I think we shouldn't.
Okay, I'll give you a little bit more.
Except mine's going to be based on like the individual and its capacity to actually suffer, and yours is just going to be based on your personal beliefs. So, anyways, keep going.
Okay, I'll give you a little bit more because fulfilled revelation, miracles, the witness of the Bible. There's tons of evidence, I believe, that God existed back then and exists now. And there's
I have evidence that humans exist. Whatever he was doing there was just as bad, if not worse, than what I was trying to do earlier. Like, all he's saying is, we ought to follow God's commands because God exists. Like, what?
And if they do not peacefully cooperate together, then the species will destroy itself. So why is yours better?
But why ought we have the species continue?
Is God good?
He is good.
So we ought to follow God because he is good?
Yes.
You are deriving an ought from an is. Congratulations.
Yep, there we go. Wish I would have done that earlier. Well, I tried to.
I am deriving an ought from the Word of God.
Yeah, an is. Yeah, you are deriving an ought from an is. Even if you think that your clever questions get to some like dead end with me or whatever,
they did.
The biggest issue is you are guilty of the exact same thing.
Not really. I actually have an objective.
Really. You are deriving oughts from is, for example.
I have an objective basis. You have a subjective basis.
No, you don't. I don't think you actually even know what objective is.
Okay, sweetie, explain to me what you think objective is.
Objective means not influenced by personal feelings or opinions in considering and representing facts.
True in all cases, mind independent.
Yes, that is God's morality.
In what way is that God's morality?
In the morality presented in Jesus and Christianity, it is objective and it is unchanging.
How is it objective? It obviously changes because we had to have an entire new covenant brought about. But how is it objective?
No, actually, nothing changed. It was more like it was kind of more like Old Testament is part 1. New Testament is part 2. We didn't really see the full revelation of God until Jesus came. So nothing is inaccurate or nothing is wrong in the Old Testament.
Literally changed.
But the full expression of God's will did not come until the New Testament. But you also have not answered the question of where you get your objective morality from. If you even believe
we're pretending that I literally don't get it from anywhere, and we're trying to see if you have a solution to this.
I do. It is the morality of Jesus.
Right. So in what way is it objective? That's what we're talking about.
It is unchanging. It is from God. It stands outside of time.
That's not the definition of objective.
It's not based on any kind of human opinion or reason. It stands static and outside of time.
So God has reasons for commanding things?
Yes.
So then we can appeal to reason and we don't need God.
Yeah, I used to use that one a lot. I don't remember the last time I've used that. It's probably been a while. His kitty cat. Hi, kitty cat.
Just like the rational stance of, well, humans have a sovereignty that shouldn't be violated, and there are all these reasons why we can discover and describe why that is beneficial not just to the individual but the entire group. We can use reason. Secular humanists who believe in like some kind of objective morality or whatever do the same kind of thing because they have an objective in mind.
I would argue everybody.
Whoa, what did that mean? Because they have an objective in mind? Yeah, I don't know. That got really weak at the end.
Uses reason. My reason has led me to Jesus.
Cool.
So you said, do you believe that you have objective morality?
I'm not really sure.
Okay. So you believe that
I would say no nowadays.
Morality is subjective.
I said I'm not really sure. I know that yours is.
Okay. So you believe that would you say your morality is subjective?
I said I'm not really.
The way he can't. The way he just cannot do anything other than repeat his little prescripted things. It's just
sure. But I know that yours is.
Okay. So
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, like is murder wrong? I have to ask you two questions. So like, is murder wrong, for example?
It is wrong for, so it depends on what we mean by murder. Murder is the unjust taking of life, and it is wrong for humans to unjustly take lives. I already see where you're going with this. It is
I wasn't gonna ask you about what if God kills somebody.
Okay, sorry.
But what you just said is that the implication
Is subjective.
for what you just said is that God can do unjust things.
Yep. Completely subjective.
It's
God
not
is
unjust.
allowed to do unjust things.
It's not unjust when he does it.
But you just said that it's wrong when a human unjustly takes another life.
Yes, that's
Is it
what
wrong
murder
when
is.
God unjustly takes another life?
He's never unjustly taken a life.
Then why did you say it that way?
We can say things lots of ways, but God has never unjustly taken a life.
Okay, so whatever. Okay.
Completely circular there, because they're just always going to say it was just because trust me, bro.
Okay, so murder is objectively wrong? That's what you're saying?
It is objectively wrong for humans, yes.
Okay, does God know that it's objectively wrong?
It is not. Objective morality applies to humans. It does not apply to God. He's the creator.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, I see where I'm going with this. I used to do this. I don't do this anymore. But it kind of goes back to the whole thing about if God has reasons for commanding things, we can appeal to reason and cut out the middleman. So if God knows that murder is wrong, then it can be known, and we don't. What I'm doing here is I'm saying if objective moral facts exist, then they don't come from God.
When God kills somebody
Not
with
the
a
question
When God
at
kills
all.
somebody-
Is
Sorry.
murder wrong? You said yes. I'm asking you, does God know that it's wrong?
No, I said that it's wrong for humans.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
So
okay.
does God know that?
God made the rule for humans.
What I'm doing here, you keep seeing me look off to the screen. I used to have like Google Docs of how I'm making fun of him for being pre-scripted, but I would have bullets on how I would deal with certain questions like this. I would never do it for like science content, but this stuff early on when I was developing how I think about it, I would do that a lot. I stopped doing it pretty quickly because I just realized that I was just looking at the screen, but it just made for bad and clunky and dishonest takes. So
Humans, yes.
Does he know that it's wrong?
He knows that it's wrong for humans, yes.
Then it's objectively wrong, and we don't need God because it's independent of that. I think that people like you confuse objective and objectively. See, for you, if God said, go and kill these people or I won't let you into heaven, you can say that that's objectively the right thing to do because you're trying to get to heaven.
yeah, so this is, normative. And I wasn't introduced to these kinds of the lingo around this or whatever, but I had an intuition of it back then.
But what I was asking you earlier is your morality subjective or objective?
I'm not really sure.
Okay, so let's say
I can tell you that it's true that when you violate somebody else's sovereignty, or I guess you don't like that phrasing, but when you like physically affect somebody or whatever, that actually causes like pain and suffering in the individual. That's true. I don't know if you don't think that that's true or what.
Many dictators and many societies have lived very great lives by violating human sovereignty. On what basis are they wrong?
On the persons whose sovereignty they were violating.
Yeah, what kind of question was that?
Who cares about them from a naturalistic evolutionary point of view?
That sounds very much like something somebody like you would say.
God's morality is objective because it is not contingent on any human opinion. It doesn't change over time. It's not.
That's not what objective means.
Not situational. My understanding of subjective morality is that it has to do with situational with the subject. It is viewed as by the subject. So subjective morality can be different from
That's moral relativism.
person to person to person.
I mean, it is also there's there's subjectivity in that, but I wouldn't say that that is what subjectivity with regard to morals is.
Whereas objective morality is the idea, like Sam Harris has, that morality does not change. It is the same across the board, across the world.
Okay, so tell me something that's wrong.
According to me?
You can pick whatever you want.
Yeah, okay, yes, murder is wrong.
Okay, according to God, is it wrong?
According to God, yes.
Okay, what if God told you to murder somebody?
If God told me to murder somebody, well, so if God were doing it, in a sense, it would not be wrong, because murder is
you
only
believe in subjective morality. There you go.
Yeah. In a world where God doesn't exist, but you do exactly what God told you to do in the universe where he does exist, in one, you can either say it's wrong or you can say that it doesn't have a moral value to it. In the other, it becomes good. Either way, it's subjective.
Go.
No, I don't believe in subjective morality.
Yes, you do. You're going to make an
it-
excuse for how something that you said is objectively wrong is not wrong if God tells you to do it. That's subjective.
It is wrong for humans. It is wrong for humans
Yeah, that's
to
subjective.
murder.
Yeah, so if God told you to just go and kill a baby, you're telling me that it would not be murder. Now tell me why it wouldn't.
It wouldn't be unrighteous. It is only
Great. Now
unrighteous
tell me why it wouldn't be.
because it would be like an example of me killing a Nazi during World War II. It would
Comparing a baby to a Nazi.
be a righteous kill.
How do you know that?
It wouldn't be murder.
How do you know that?
It's a baby.
In the moment, I wouldn't know it, but God has never committed murder.
So how do you know? You're just declaring that it wouldn't be.
Yeah, he admitted that you wouldn't know until after you die. So we actually, I think maybe I say this in this video, but we have no idea. Christians have no idea if they have the objective morality until after they die.
Based on nothing.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't know until afterwards, but all I know is that God has never murdered a single person.
No, you don't know that.
God, I mean,
Yeah, you don't know that because you won't find out until after you die.
situational. You're asking for a potential event that could happen and hasn't happened yet. So there's no way of us to determine whether it was righteous or not. But God can take life.
So you don't have an objective world. There's no reason for anybody to believe your worldview because you don't even know if following God's own commandments, if that's actually virtuous and objectively good.
There we go. Not too bad, young Peterson.
How do you know that it was righteous?
We don't, Eric. We don't need to know. It's not. Dude, you're not God.
Your arguments are so stupid. Look,
Eric,
your
morality
worldview
has
doesn't
no
allow
issue.
you to distinguish right from wrong, blah, blah, blah.
dude,
Okay,
you're not-
tell me something that... Okay, well, here's a fuzzy example in your ethical worldview. Well, but it wasn't that because we know that it was righteous. How do you know that? Well, we don't even need to know it.
But dude, according to your morality, it's not wrong to drive around in a tank killing people.
And
so
neither,
is yours
and it's
any
not
better?
wrong in yours either.
Is yours? No, it is wrong because of my objective
It's
morality.
wrong for the people.
I would
It's wrong
pick
to
up
the
my
people
Bible.
being killed.
I
It's
would
certainly
pick up
wrong
my
to the people
Bible.
being killed. But in your
I have
worldview, all it has to do is be sponsored by God, and then it's not wrong.
But that scenario has not happened anytime recently, so it has nothing to do with what.
Recently. So I skipped over the part where we talked about Numbers 31. So the exact equivalent of whatever horrible thing he's telling me I can't say it was wrong has happened with God's endorsement, but he just then arbitrarily labels it as not wrong.
What we're doing now. So all I would do is I would pick up my Bible. I would say this is objectively wrong, and because you don't have objective morality, you can't actually say it's wrong.
You don't have objective morality.
I do. I would pick up my Bible and I would say this is wrong.
I really can't believe that I didn't take his specific example, driving a tank around and killing people or the Nazis or whatever. I can't believe I didn't specifically say, what if God told Hitler to do it or whatever. The debate would have been over in 5 seconds at that point, I guess. Huh, kitty cat. Well, that was our dive into the Planet Peterson archives. Thanks for watching, and you'll see me tomorrow.